All right, so welcome, y'all. Welcome to this free masterclass. This is the core conversation that nobody is having. Um, for this conversation, it's going to be big picture. I wanted to tie some things together for you, and there's definitely going to be some time at the end for questions. And at the end, I will share a discount code with you. If you would like to sign up for the BIRTHFIT certification and if you're on the fence about it, right now we're enrolling for the fall cohort. So definitely consider that. Before I get into all that, I want to know if you can answer, if you're in a place where you can answer, what is one thing, one reason that made you pull the trigger for this, for signing up for this master class? What is the why that got you to sign up? So if you want to unmute yourself, you can. If you want to throw it in the chat box, you can. Um, was there a personal experience that happened? Do you coach? Do you practice? Are you a PT? Are you a chiropractor? Are you an OB, a midwife? How does core work, core conversation show up in your everyday life right now? Do you want more information personally? What was the reason that made you pull the trigger to sign up for this? Anybody want to share? I'm okay with quiet. Okay, we got somebody that hurt their back and core never fully recovered from my last birth. Waiting to go back to the. Wow, okay. I'm so glad you're here. We can definitely talk about your specific case at the end too, if you want to. I work out every day and want to know more about core and pelvic floor. Perfect. I feel like you're in the right spot and hopefully share some words of wisdom. All right. Anybody else still a bit leaky after 4 births? Okay, got it. And pelvic floor therapy. Um, Working as a registered massage therapist and craving more insight to care for others. Brilliant. Love it. All right. Anybody else want to share um, your why for signing up for this course, for this class? It's not a course. We're only together for a short period today. And also trying to get pregnant and want to educate myself. Brilliant. I educated myself for 10 years, started a company before I got pregnant originally. So you're in the right spot. All right, y'all. Let's start chatting about it. Questions. If you have questions along the way, throw them in the chat box on the side, or like I said, we're going to talk about it at the end. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A. Um, because I know myself, and if I get if I we start having a conversation, I will go off on tangents. Lucky you, but not so lucky for the people that get the recording. All right, let's do a share screen. I got some slides I created for you. All right, here we go. Let's go to the top. All right, before we dive in, for those of you that don't know me, I feel like all of you are new here today, which is awesome, because I didn't recognize a ton of the names on the list. So I'm really happy to see new faces, new names, and y'all, I've been in this space, in the birth space, in the women's health space since about 2011. My name is Lindsey Mathews Cantu. It's right there. Forgot to say that earlier. I am a chiropractor, doctor of chiropractic. I am a strength and conditioning coach, and I am a birth doula. Right now, my birth doula season is semi-retired because I have a little one that's 2.5 years old, and my husband's working about 40, 50, sometimes 60 hours a week. And being on call for birth, for those of you that know that lifestyle, is just it didn't work for our family right now. So I love to support in other ways currently. So those are the three main hats that I've worn and that really started BirthFit so that I could be this bridge and fill the gap between all of those spaces. I also have other certifications like yoga teacher training and NLP practitioner that have really complemented this work here. So I've been in this space for a while. I've seen a lot. I've observed. I've had the privilege of attending births. I've had the privilege and honor of being alongside women throughout their motherhood transition from starting preconception. I'm also Mercier therapist trained. I work a lot with preconception and getting women's bodies ready for conception through abdominal work, hands-on. And the whole motherhood transition has always been fascinating to me. And just to share a little bit, you know, prior to this, I worked in sports rehab. I worked for a company called this International Sports Performance Institute out of Los Angeles, California. And we worked with high like caliber athletes, like Olympic level, professional level. And we also worked with actors and actresses on movies, specifically like big stunts and stuff. And, we were getting athletes, actors, actresses ready for their big event, whatever that was, and then recovering to do it again either the next day or training again for the Olympics in 4 years. And they were in season training for birth. And as I was with the company, for a couple of years, I started as an intern. There are a few women that started coming to me and saying, "Hey, I trust you. I want you to be part of my next chapter. I'm thinking about getting pregnant, or I want to get pregnant in the off season of my show." And that got my wheels turning. And, I had one or two classes on pregnancy and pediatrics in chiropractic school, like specifically. And I know that's very relatable to a lot of you. And especially like even if you did further education, a doctorate, OBs only get their specific education when they go in residency, and they get very little nutrition, very little biomechanics, movement, fascial patterns, things like that. Quantum biology, forget it. So that started the path of me just embracing curiosity again and going down the rabbit hole of, okay, if these athletes are training for their event, their sport, for lack of a better words, why are women not training for birth? Why are we not recovering in this country? Why do we have, one of the biggest rates of postpartum anxiety and mood disorder? Women, the maternal care in our country sucks, for a lack of a better words. We have one of the highest maternal mortality rates, one of the highest infant mortality rates out of industrialized countries. And frankly, we should be better. We should be better than where we're at. So that got me embracing curiosity, embracing lots of books, and I'm pointing to the bookshelves over here. They're overflowing. Um, but here we are, and that started the BirthFit blog, that started the BirthFit social media, the Instagram, all the things. And when I started diving down the rabbit hole of birth, of breath, of core, I realized I didn't know much. Um, Even with a doctorate, even being immersed in the sports rehab world. And so I'm going to share with you some big players, big concepts that helped me figure out core and pelvic floor and take it away. You can take whatever you want from this, excuse me, slideshow. And I would love for you to join us in the BirthFit certification. But if you don't, you have some information right here to add to your medicine cabinet, your wellness cabinet. So let's get started. Boom. Oh, I do want to tell you about this photo right here. This was at our BirthFit Summit in 2019, no, 2018 or 19. Wow. Yeah, 2019. And we sold out at 150 participants. And the energy in this room right here was just amazing. I had to rent out a bigger gym than I thought. And we were in Austin, Texas. The energy here was brilliant. And every woman in here was doing yoga with me. And right there in the middle is my camera guy. And my camera guy he has a 2-year-old now, might be 18 months, almost two. And his name's Taylor Gelbrick. Um, if you want to go check him out on Instagram, but you can see the little babies in here. Um, there's some throughout. And it was just a really cool environment. And that was before 2020 hit. I just love that picture. Okay, so this is the core conversation that nobody is having that I am kicking myself in the booty for not having earlier because it's like, hello, duh, let's talk big picture before we get granular. Um, if you think of the core, right? Like it's everybody thinks abs, abs, but those aren't the same. Um, the core is literally the center of us, the center of our being. And if you think about the different chakras, like if you study the chakras that are, I won't go down that rabbit hole just yet, or very deep in this, but you have the root chakra, the sacral chakra, then the solar plexus, and those all reside really in this core cylinder that is the place where our breath pattern lives, where our digestion, where our reproductive organs, where the center of our being hangs out. And I don't think any of that, like whatever you believe in as a whole, I don't think, I'm gonna say God because I believe in God. I don't think God did that just haphazardly. I think everything was on purpose. Um, so I think all of it together is absolutely intentional. So if you're in the fitness world or even the chiropractic space or the PT space, the physical therapy space, the physio space, these two misconceptions on the left here, hopefully they're on the left of your screen, these are the biggest things I see. You know, I feel like we've been cueing the same since the 80s. Um, I remember my mom doing workout videos at home, VHS, plug them in, and hearing, suck your belly button in, bring your belly button to your spine, suck your pelvic floor up. And, I feel like those definitely have a time and a place. But if you're looking at the body as a whole system, as an integrated system, that's not innate. That's not functional. That's not how we were designed to manage our internal pressure system for the core system to function optimally. And that really misguides core engagement. It leads to dysfunction and it really messes up the internal pressure system that we are supposed to innately have the ability to manage on our own, um, leading into isolated cueing. So isolated cueing is where we're like trying to isolate just the transverse abdominis or just the pelvic floor. No muscle in our body operates just by itself. Even the bicep, when you're flexing the bicep, there's other muscles being recruited in the shoulder girdle, in the elbow situation, down the arm. No muscle in our body works in isolation. And when you're trying to isolate a muscle, you're overlooking the beautiful dynamics of the entire body, the core system, the core muscles, and how they naturally function. And again, this is going to result in ineffective training and compensation patterns. Now, you want to go a little bit deeper, nutrition absolutely is being overlooked when it comes to core health. And I mean this, when I say core health, I'm thinking about dysfunction for leakage. I'm thinking about diastasis rectus abdominis that's lingering. I'm thinking about prolapse. I'm thinking about even lumbar spine disc injury. Really anything that's a sign or a symptom like that, if you're not paying attention to nutrition, that's a big miss because, to put it blankly, chronic inflammation can have issues like that persist, and that can also lead to the mom pooch. Um, and then the nervous system link. Finally, people are talking about the nervous system link on Instagram and social media. but I'm a chiropractor and I focus on the nervous system. I focus on wellness care. And if a body does not feel safe, then they're always going to prioritize survival over reproduction, over expanding, enhancing, growing. Um, and so a body that's prioritizing safety and survival, they're going to prioritize compensation patterns to get the job done, to get the survival in that moment achieved. So within BirthFit, one of the sayings I love is we explore the range of motion of our nervous system so that we can expand its capacity and adaptability. All right, so what is the BirthFit Core? The BirthFit Core is strong and dynamic. It's a comprehensive pressure management system that emphasizes the interconnectedness of the entire body's core structures rather than isolating individual muscles. And this is to achieve, like our goal is to achieve optimal function and stability. And like I said at the beginning of this, for those of you that have joined us later, by the end of this, you're going to have a bird's eye view, a global view of this. Um, and things like, I don't want to say isolated cueing, but let's call it specific cueing, has its place. Like a Kegel has its place, but that's not going to optimize the comprehensive integrated system that is the core. You have to know the global picture, God's blueprint, before moving on, before diving in and getting to the nuance of things, getting specific. Um, at BirthFit, we view the core as a canister. If you want to be really nerdy about it, it's basically from the collarbones all the way to the pubic bones, 360 degrees round. But I'm going to say definitely lower ribs. So diaphragm levels right at your lowest ribs, and then all the way down to the pubic bone, 360 degrees round. So that encompasses the diaphragm and the pelvic floor, which are parallel to each other. It encompasses all the abdominal muscles, whatever you would think the abdominal muscles are, from the rectus abdominis to the internal and external obliques to the transverse abdominis, which is the deepest corset muscle, and then even the multifidi that are on the back. All of those have to work in harmony. They have to work dynamically, yeah, responding to load, to breath, to movement for effective, efficient core stabilization. And then breathing. Breathing is the foundational piece of core work. Breath work, how you breathe, is foundational to all movement. If your breathing patterns are not normalized, there are compensation patterns and no other movements will be optimal. I can guarantee it. As somebody that grew up with breathing issues, aka asthma, I know this. I've been working on this my whole life. Every breath cycle activates the entire canister, either enhancing stability or contributing to compensation patterns. So ideally, we're enhancing stability and managing our internal pressure system efficiently. Um, this is essential for, I would say, comfort, um, throughout pregnancy, how a woman moves and feels in her body. Does she feel at home in her body, or is she uncomfortable, or are there aches and pains? This is essential for birth because mom and baby are doing a dance. They're moving together. They both have active roles in birth, but your breath is your metronome. Your breath connects the physical and the non-physical. So your breathing is essential for birth. And then obviously necessary for postpartum recovery. Um, Before we move on, because I don't think I put this in here because I was thinking big picture, but knowing the diaphragm and the pelvic floor are parallel. I talked earlier, I said there's no way to isolate the pelvic floor from all the other muscles. You can look up studies on this. Every time We take a breath and the diaphragm moves, the pelvic floor responds. The pelvic floor and diaphragm always, always, always work together. So if there's anything you take home today, make that be it. There's no isolation of any muscle that can happen. You can intentionally focus on a muscle group, a set of muscles, like I'm gonna do bicep curls, but you're not isolating just the bicep muscle. You're either having an optimal shoulder girdle pattern or not. So let's talk about this before we move on. The diaphragm and the pelvic floor. With each inhale, everything lowers. The diaphragm lowers, the pelvic floor lowers, and everything expands 360 degrees, ideally. On the exhale, without thinking, you're not thinking about how to exhale, and you can watch this in babies. On the exhale, everything naturally returns back to your neutral, your starting point. So if you want to try this, let's do this together. If you're at a place where you're like not driving, maybe you're seated or you're lying on the ground. If you're seated, use the back of the chair, have both feet on the ground. Find that neutral posture where your rib cage is stacked on top of your pelvis. And then what I want you to do is either put your hands up on top of your thighs or just put them somewhere where you're relaxed, maybe on the desk or wherever. Close your eyes, and I want you to take 3 to 5 breaths. You're going to inhale and exhale through your nose. Let's do one together. Breathe in and fill up. And exhale. Next one, I want you to inhale. Think about expanding your lower ribs, 360 degrees. And then when you're ready, exhale. Next, inhale, breathe in through your nose. And I want you to go send that energy, send that air all the way down to the lowest part of your pelvic bowl, to your booty that's touching the chair or the ground. And then exhale through your nose. All right, let's try one more. Breathe in, fill up. Now I want you to feel your back body move against the chair. Right around that bra strap line, that mid-back space. Then exhale whenever you're ready. That is a natural diaphragm breath. That is how we as humans, from infancy, from the moment we come out of the womb, we innately learn this. I'll talk about this in a second. Through developmental kinesiology is the specific study of it. But this is God's blueprint. This is how we are designed to breathe. If you want to get super specific, ideally you breathe mostly into the lower belly, the lower back, and then a little bit into the chest. But you're not breathing up here in your accessory muscles, your scalenes, your neck, none of that. Um, if we're creating our stability breath, this is what we call it at BIRTHFIT, is the stability breath. More specifically, it's called task-specific intra-abdominal pressure. You're bracing and managing your internal pressure system at the same time. So your inhale is going to be the same. You're going to inhale, everything lowers and expands 360 degrees. And then on the exhale, you're bracing as if somebody's punching you or you're blowing out candles on a birthday cake, but you're trying to maintain that expansion that you created, your body created 360 degrees. You're not bearing down, your muscles are eccentrically contracting. So let's try a few of these together. It might help if you put your hands, the palm of your hands, from the center of your armpit at your lower ribs and just let them fold right there on your lower ribs. Relax your shoulders. Inhale and exhale. Try to maintain contact with your fingers. Try that again. Inhale and exhale. Trying to blow out candles or as if somebody was punching you. But you're managing your own internal pressure system based on the task at hand. So I want to be specific with that. Task at hand depends on how, for lack of a better word, how much you brace. All right, so let's move on. Remind me, and I'll post, if you haven't seen any of the YouTube videos, I'll post them in the chat. So I said I would talk about this just a few seconds ago. Dynamic neuromuscular stabilization. For those of you that don't know, this is basically the Prague School of Rehab, and I did a ton of these seminars post my doctorate of chiropractic. And this is what really made me feel confident in studying movement, human movement, and breath. DNS, you can find a DNS seminar basically, any time of the year now, any season, and throughout the United States. I'm not sure about Canada. Belgium, you may have the opportunity to go to Prague, which is cool. Like that's where it started. Um, but for sure, the Midwest and the West Coast, they've got seminars pretty regularly. This is a rehab and performance approach that's focused on restoring optimal movement patterns by understanding developmental kinesiology principles. Developmental kinesiology is the study of human movement from infancy to bipedal locomotion. And I went down this rabbit hole because, y'all, I was like, how do we learn to move as humans? Like, we need to know that. If you put a baby on a beautiful, fun mat in Texas, in Japan, in Canada, wherever around the world, when they are left motivated and inspired with no obstacles or anything like that, they will all go through the same sequential movement sequences, um, that pretty around the same time. So they'll start to move their thumbs inside and outside of their hands. They'll start to look and start to turn their heads. They'll start to do the dead bug type of thing, like the happy baby. They'll roll over. They'll push up to an oblique sit. 3 month, if you lay a baby 3 month prone, they'll start to lift their head. And now they're activating different parts of their spine. But first, the baby's got to learn to breathe, and that's what happens when they're laying on their back in that sagittal plane. They master that diaphragm breath. So DNS really helped me in the sports rehab world because if I thought of the innate, the natural human movement sequence, then wherever somebody had an injury, say they had a rotator cuff injury, I would take them back to the previous, let's call it pose or movement that they could achieve pain-free. And that's where we would start to work. Even if it was after rotator cuff surgery, as soon as I could get them 3 month prone and head lifting, we're starting there. So that's where my rehab would focus. And I would say I was quite successful. I had an office in Beverly Hills. Um, I had space in Santa Monica. I worked on movie sets. I traveled the world. It was awesome. Um, DNS is built on the idea that ideal movement patterns are ingrained in our nervous system. So remember that, right? Like we talked about earlier, if the nervous system doesn't feel safe, the nervous system is going to do whatever it needs to do to achieve safety in that moment. And, thinking about a kid that has asthma, myself, as I grew up, you got to take it back, or I took it back to myself, where the position that I could achieve and feel comfortable in a diaphragm breath. And y'all, believe it or not, that was all the way back down to 3 month position, supine and prone. So the movement patterns are ingrained in our nervous system, but at some point, if our nervous system doesn't feel safe and stabilizing or prioritizing safety over anything, then it's going to develop a compensation pattern in that moment, and that's going to be carried out throughout life until we address it. Um, so watch any child; they are setting the standard for core stabilization. The infant movement sequence represents the gold standard for core stabilization, and this is where natural developmental milestones are established, basically in that first 12 to 18 months. Um, and you'll see them, they develop beautiful movement patterns and they're able to manage their own internal pressure system. You watch a child pick up something heavy, um, they're using their own internal pressure system, but they're working with what they got with their body. And this is how I got into strongman and the sport of strongman was because you have to lift in a way you have to work with your body, right? You're lifting odd objects and you watch a baby, like I watched my little girl do this all the time. She lifts something heavy, and it was exactly how a strongman athlete would lift a stone or a boulder. It's phenomenal. Um, when we become adults, as we get older, we lose these innate movement patterns basically because we're stuck behind a desk, we create poor posture, stress, injuries, the sedentary lifestyle, all of it. And that results in dysfunction. And one of the biggest things I do with women, especially if I'm working one-on-one with women, is like, I want to know your whole history, your whole movement history. Were you an athlete in high school? What was your adolescence like? Did you start playing baseball, softball, volleyball, a sport, a very one-sided sport, or, a specific position within that sport? Did you start playing that young? Um, and how long did you play it? Did you do it in high school? Were you an outside hitter in volleyball? I want to know those things because even if you got pregnant, maybe you were an outside hitter in high school in volleyball and you stopped, you didn't do that in college. But think about it, you had 6 years of that, 7 years, maybe 8 years of that. And then you get pregnant at 32. We're going to talk about it. We're going to address those. All right, so as I mentioned, learning from babies. Babies are the gold standard. Babies develop core stability through movement, starting from basic positions, going to more upright, and then to bipedal locomotion. They need to go through these developmental stages, and each one builds on the last one, enhancing stability, enhancing strength, and also enhancing nervous system and cognitive development. Skipping developmental stages can hinder proper core function and pressure management, and also parts of the brain will not be utilized. If we skip crawling, we're really not integrating our right and left brain hemispheres. It's not great. Um, the reason why we utilize this approach at BirthFit, we use these developmental positions to basically the BirthFit basics. You can find them on YouTube for free. I think they're essential for everyone, but especially women inside the motherhood transition. We use these effectively because they're safe, they're sustainable. Like I said, everybody needs to be doing them, but we've already achieved, like as human beings, we've already achieved these movement milestones at least once in our life. From our own infancy, learning how to roll over, crawl, walk, squat, stand, and on up. Fun fact, babies are born with diastasis rectus abdominis, and they approximate their DRA by going through the developmental sequence. Brilliant. So this is where the light bulb went off for me. Like when I realized this, I was like, why are we not doing this in postpartum? Why are we not doing this in pregnancy for prevention or even preconception for effective functional movements? This is why we do what we do at BirthFit. And we go inside the BirthFit certification, we go through all the BirthFit basics, movements, and poses. There are 15 movements and poses. There's a whole module on that, on how to coach it, how to cue it, how to cue each one, and then what each one is really beneficial for. Like high bear, really useful for urinary incontinence. All right, we hit on a little bit of the pelvic floor earlier. The pelvic floor is muscles, connective tissue, there's nerves, It's designed, it's like this hammock, right? At the bottom, the base of the pelvic bowl, the pelvic canister. And it's designed to help with stabilization, sexual function, sphincter control. It holds some really important things. Like I said earlier, you cannot isolate the pelvic floor on its own. Just does not, that is not a thing. So if somebody's like, let's contract our pelvic floor, there's other things happening in your body somewhere for that to happen. And most likely there's other compensation patterns happening. If you haven't paid attention to your breath and you're only trying to contract the pelvic floor. Um, ah! In order for there to be optimal function, optimal core function, the pelvic floor has to be able to contract and relax. It has to be able to contract concentrically, so like a bicep in the short phase, and eccentrically in that elongated phase, and also isometrically, like holding just in that spot. The big nerves that innervate the pelvic floor, the pudendal and pelvic splanchnic nerves, these are essential for pelvic floor function, and they originate at the base of the spine around the sacrum S2 area. So healthy nerves are really, really crucial for optimal pelvic floor function. Um, if our nervous system thinks we're in survival mode or chronic stress mode, those nerves are communicating that to the pelvic floor. Your vagus nerve touches the pelvic floor, influences the pelvic floor, influences digestion. So if it thinks we're not safe, there's always a perceived threat, then it's going to stay in that contracted phase. Pelvic floor is going to stay contracted, hypertonic, overworked, underpaid. So one of the first things I do with women that have prolapse or urinary incontinence is we've got to get the nervous system in safety mode, and we got to relax the pelvic floor. So, as you know, you cannot effectively train the core without impacting the pelvic floor. They're an inseparable connection. They're an inseparable system. They rely on each other. So whenever I say core, whenever I refer to the core, I literally, in my mind, it's diaphragm, pelvic floor, abdominal muscles, multifidi. It's all of those together and the connective tissue and the nerves that innervate it. But when I'm communicating on social media or wherever, I always have to say core and pelvic floor. Um, so here a little bit about gut health. So as we talked about earlier, the core is this canister, right? It's a whole intricate system. And your poop shares the same space as your reproductive organs. Um, this is why this relationship of addressing gut health is so important because if you have chronic inflammation, systemic inflammation in your gut space. If you have central obesity, it's going to influence how your abdominals function, how your core functions, how the range of motion of your diaphragm. So things like bloating, constipation, we hit on inflammation, all of that increases intra-abdominal pressure. And as I mentioned earlier with the stability breath, we have to be able to manage our own internal pressure system. So if your intra-abdominal pressure is already being taxed, those muscles are already working, right? They're overworking and underpaid. That's going to affect gut health, pelvic floor stability, and overall core health. Um, you know, the minute I start working with somebody, I check diet, I check their circadian rhythm, not only nervous system or the physical like movement screens, but I'm looking at all this because this requires comprehensive care, especially the woman as a whole. She's not isolated parts. And then we touched on the vagus nerve earlier, but the enteric nervous system, this is a fancy name for the nerves that control the digestive system. This plays a vital role, crucial role in gut-brain health, um, influencing gut motility and pelvic floor function. All right, we've hit on the nervous system quite a bit, but there's nerves all around. So even C3, C4, C5 that exit your cervical spine, those innervate the diaphragm. So if you are a chiropractor or you're seeing a chiropractor that does not look at the whole spine and you're working with them to restore core health, what the heck? What are we doing? We got to look at the entire system because it's the nervous system absolutely influences core function. I touched on these nerves in the last section, and I touched on chronic stress, fight or flight. I do want to touch on this. When we were doing our sample breath earlier, inhaling and exhaling through your nose. If you are inhaling and or exhaling through your mouth, you're basically sending a cue to your nervous system that you're not safe right now, that it's not time to heal, grow, restore, that it's time to, is there, look around, perceive threat. Our body, our nervous system picks up on our external environment via a process called neuroception. Picks up on things from people's eye contact, their facial expressions, smells, lights, sounds, all of it. And it's subconscious, y'all. We're very, like, only now are we starting to become aware of this. But those cues immediately send a signal to your nervous system that you're either safe or not safe. And if it says not safe, then, right, we're going down this threat rabbit hole of what are we going to do in the face of a perceived threat? Are we going to negotiate, talk our way out of it? Okay, if we can't do that, are we going to run? Are we going to fight? If we can't do that, are we going to play possum? Are we going to play dead? Are we going to freeze? Those are like the different levels based on the polyvagal theory. That's a whole nother thing. I have a master class on that on our website that you can actually purchase now. Um, but our nervous system influences everything. And do you know what influences our nervous system? Light. Light is the biggest one, and we're going to get into that. But the tools, before we move on, the tools that we have available to us to help regulate our nervous system are breath, sound, and movement. You have those tools available to you in labor, in birth, because mom and baby are the only ones guaranteed tickets to the birth. So mom's got to know that she's got the tools inside of her. Pretty fascinating, huh? So circadian rhythm. As a chiropractor, this blew my mind, right? As a nervous system chiropractor, because I'm sitting here saying, your nervous system controls everything. Your nervous system controls everything, all of it. But of course, God said, no, look deeper. And during my pregnancy, I was called to light. I was called to nature. I was like, why is the sun the portal to God right now? That's literally what I was thinking. And the circadian rhythm must be reset every day. This is why morning sunshine is so important. Getting that sunrise, as close to sunrise light on your naked eyeball is going to send a signal to your suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is a fancy name for basically the clock in your brain. And that starts to tell your nervous system what time of day it is. And now, based on that, it's got an order of operations what to do. Pretty fascinating, Heidi, right? Like, so light exposure, meal timing, physical activities, all of that is like that helps to regulate your body's internal clock. This is why one of my biggest, when I'm working with clients, one of my biggest nutrition advices is not what to eat, but when to eat. Eat your biggest meals of the day in the morning, late morning, midday. Have a small meal at night. as dinner. Do not eat after dark. Your digestion is turned off. Like God turned that off at night for a reason, for you to heal, grow, restore. Um, I strongly believe that one of the biggest reasons for, I'll call it dysfunctional labor, but that's like not a great term, but ineffective labor patterns, dysfunctional labor, are disruptions in circadian rhythm. And I really believe this when like I've observed women coming from work, like their job looks at a blue light, a screen, majority of the day. They're stuck inside under big LED lights. They get very little outside natural light on their naked eyeballs. Y'all, we need melatonin, which is harvested in the day and comes out about 2 hours after dark. It's got to be pitch black dark. Like that, darkness is so important. But we need melatonin. Melatonin and oxytocin work synergistically for strong uterine contractions, very efficient uterine contractions. This is why at BirthFit, the sun is our first pillar. That means circadian rhythm is integrated into all the framework when I look at a woman as a whole. Um, yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say there. I could go down some rabbit holes there. But I will say this also. The one of the biggest things I see for postpartum mood and anxiety disorder is women stuck inside. If you're newly postpartum, make the first nursing session of the day, like even if you got 2 hours of sleep, I would do this especially in the first 3 months with Vera. Go outside, sit in the sun. Now you're entraining both your circadian rhythms. Um, if we had a rough night outside immediately, naked eyeballs to the sun. I think that's why she was able to really differentiate night and day so quickly. Like I really think her circadian rhythm was entrained by 6 to 8 weeks. Pretty wild, huh? Oh, and another fun fact, gosh, I should hold a master class just on circadian rhythm. Um, if you're dealing with morning sickness, yes, protein, bacon. Bacon is like one of the sneaky snacks there. But get your body in at least 9 to 10 hours of darkness a night. You need that reset. Do not look at your phone or that blue light. Okay, so we've kind of talked about this already, putting it all together. The core canister, the pelvic floor, all the gut health stuff, the nervous system. Right now, hopefully you see how all of it's connected, forming this comprehensive framework that highlights the importance of understanding the woman as a whole, right? That's why I get so annoyed with like, okay, this is your pelvic floor. No, where's the nerves? Where's the reproductive organs, everything? Like this is so basic. Um, like I said earlier, none of this functions separately. They all work together, ideally in harmony as a cohesive unit. So emphasizing one area is not really effective if you're not considering the whole. Healing processes are interconnected, meaning if one system is out of balance, it's going to adversely affect another. So this is why, y'all, the Newtonian model is out. We've got to look at the whole system. This is why the BirthFit 7 pillars. This is why lifestyle medicine, and I like to say lifestyle wellness, is crucial, is key for the next level of our human evolution. But I did want to share this with you. If a woman's come to me and we're working one-on-one or in a small group and she has core pelvic floor dysfunction, this is the framework I use. I look at her patterns, meaning breathing and movement. I look at her nourishment, as I mentioned, and her mindset. Those are the three things I start with, and then we go down from there. So, I think that was BirthFit basics, foundational movements. These are re-education. Like your body already knows this. As I said, you can find these on YouTube. They're free. Like I put them out there because I absolutely think they're essential for every body, every human body, but especially pregnant and postpartum women. And these are based on developmental kinesiology. These movements are designed to promote core stability. This is core work. This is core prehab. This facilitates body, proper body biomechanics. And each movement is rooted in principles of functional strength, your breath work, optimal nervous system, movement patterns. They're, and if, and dare I say the word, they're safe. So if you know me, you know that don't say exercises are safe and effective because safety is an illusion. But yes, they're safe and effective. They're not a workout, although sometimes in the early postpartum chapter, they can feel like a workout because literally it's like a full body nervous system re-education. And in that first trimester, sometimes the BIRTHFIT basics and walking is all that feels good, and that's totally fine. Totally fine. So, as I mentioned earlier, who needs this knowledge? Everybody, but coaches, because y'all, the fitness world, coaches, instructors, whoever, whatever you identify as a trainer, you've got to understand that the core is dynamic. It's a big, intricate system. It's not just washboard abs. I think I've posted this a few times on Instagram. Like, you're doing ab work, I'm doing core work. We're not the same. And that, after seeing this presentation, hopefully you get that. So absolutely, in pregnancy, we do core work. Healthcare providers, whether that be an OB or a midwife, you need to know this information. And I'm not going to say that just like, hey, please try to know this information. You need to know this information because you're not doing your clients, your patients any favors when they come in postpartum at their 6-week checkup and they're asking you, okay, what can I do now? You're like, oh, you're cleared for sex and exercise. But have you checked their breathing patterns? Probably not. And then absolutely chiropractors, physical therapists, doulas, any other birth workers. Y'all, and I say this because I'm talking to myself, like I realized we play a crucial role in supporting women throughout pregnancy and postpartum. Most of us, chiropractors, PTs, doulas, and coaches, we're going to see women way more than their healthcare provider, even their midwife. Um, Doulas, you can become a BIRTHFIT coach and build this into your packages. You can have hard conversations with women. You can educate them on movement and beyond. You absolutely need to know this information. So there's a gap that exists in these people right here. There's absolutely a gap that exists. And I would love for you to sign up for the BIRTHFIT certification. I'm going to send you here's a little information about it. So the BIRTHFIT certification is a 12 plus module certification. The fall cohort is enrolling now. We go over the 7 pillar framework that we use. So sun, sleep, fitness, nutrition, mindset, community, and spirituality. We talk about fitness programming. We talk about time of day, like how fitness and circadian rhythm work together. We talk about preconception. We talk about nutrition, nourishment, and we definitely talk about a lot more. Obviously, there's 12 plus modules, but business is a big thing and a big reason why men and women love our certification. Upon leaving the BIRTHFIT certification, you have the opportunity, so you choose to teach our BIRTHFIT offerings. You can teach the BIRTHFIT workshop, the BIRTHFIT consultation, the BIRTHFIT basics classes, the BIRTHFIT prenatal series, the BIRTHFIT postpartum series, and our newest one, the BIRTHFIT village, prenatal village. So it's super, super cool. You will have access to each of those offerings, which come with a class plan and a handout for those in your class. So easy breezy, like you don't even have to think. But you will be taught how to think, right? With the BIRTHFIT lens and the BIRTHFIT framework. So if you want to make up your own classes, you can.